the 5 most powerful empires in history. Coming in at number 5, the Qing Empire. The ranking is not measuring territory alone. We are combining territorial scale, population, military effectiveness, economic influence, global reach, endurance, and dominance relative to the empire's own era. Near the end of the 18th century and beginning of the 19th, Qing territory is often estimated between roughly 13 and 14.7 million square kilometers, depending on how frontiers and degrees of control are counted. That made it one of the largest states on Earth. More astonishing was its human scale. By 1800, Qing China had around 300 million people, close to 30% of the world's population. In raw population and economic weight, very few empires could compete. So why only number 5? Because enormous internal strength did not always translate into the same sustained power beyond East and Central Asia. Qing expansion relied on more than one army. The Manchu Eight Banners formed a military and social elite, while the much larger Green Standard forces handled garrisons, policing, and campaigns. Cavalry remained important, but Qing armies also deployed matchlocks and artillery. Under the Kangxi, Yang Yong, and Qianlong emperors, the state defeated rivals and extended authority into Mongolia, Tibet, and Xinjiang. Economic historians have reconstructed China's share of world output in 1820 at close to 1/3, although that figure is not a modern national account and should be treated as an estimate. A surprising fact is the population surge, from roughly 150 million in the mid-17th century to around 300 million by 1800. That scale was extraordinary, but our next empire may have ruled a larger share of all people alive in its own time. Coming in at number 4, the Persian Empire founded by Cyrus the Great. Around 500 before the Common Era, it reached approximately 5.5 million square kilometers. That sounds modest beside Britain or the Mongols, but relative to the ancient world it was immense. Egypt, Mesopotamia, Anatolia, much of Central Asia, and lands extending toward the Indus were tied to one imperial system. Ancient population totals are difficult to reconstruct. Modern estimates for the empire range widely, often from about 17 to 35 million. You may have heard that Persia ruled 44% of humanity. That is a high-end estimate created by combining uncertain ancient population figures. It is possible under some assumptions, but too disputed to present as settled fact. Even the lower estimates still imply extraordinary dominance for the period. Persian power came from organization as much as battle. The empire divided territory into satrapies, whose governors collected revenue and raised forces, while royal officials and inspectors helped prevent any one governor from becoming completely independent. The royal road and its courier stations moved messages with remarkable speed for the ancient world. Militarily, the Persians combined imperial guards, cavalry, archers, engineers, naval forces supplied by subject peoples, and enormous coalition armies. The system often allowed local elites, religions, and customs to continue under imperial rule. That flexibility made governing a diverse realm more practical than trying to make every province identical. Persia earns fourth because it built an early model of large-scale imperial administration. Yet the next empire turned movement itself into a weapon and expanded across Eurasia at a pace that stunned every opponent. Coming in at number 3, the Mongol Empire. By the late 13th century, territories under direct Mongol rule and the wider imperial system stretched across roughly 24 million square kilometers in the commonly cited estimate. Guinness describes it as the largest contiguous empire in history, with around 110 million people, close to 1/4 of humanity. The numbers vary with the date and with whether tributaries and loosely controlled frontiers are included, but the scale is not in doubt. From northern China through Central Asia and into Eastern Europe and the Middle East, the Mongols connected an enormous continuous landmass. Their conquests were also remarkably fast. In only a few generations, a steppe confederation became a transcontinental imperial power, but the map alone does not explain how they did it. Mongol armies were designed for speed, intelligence, and coordination. Many warriors traveled with several horses, changing mounts so the force could cover distances that exhausted slower armies. Mounted archers used powerful composite bows. Units were organized in a decimal command system, and commanders coordinated movements with flags, horns, and messengers. Scouts mapped routes and water sources. Feigned retreats drew enemies out of position, while separate columns could converge from different directions. The relay network, later known as the YAM, supplied fresh horses and stations for official messengers. The empire also adopted engineers, administrators, and technologies from conquered societies. Its weakness was political cohesion. After succession struggles, the unified empire fractured into khanates. They conquered faster than almost anyone in history, but they still are not number one. Coming in at number 2, the British Empire. Around 1920 to 1921, its territories covered approximately 35.5 million square kilometers, more than 1/4 of Earth's land area, and the largest empire by territorial extent. In 1913, before the First World War changed the map, Britain governed about 412 million people, around 23% of humanity. This was not a single uniform state. It included colonies, protectorates, dominions, mandates, princely states, and commercial possessions with very different legal relationships to London. Nor did control mean consent. Conquest, coercion, extraction, famine policy, and resistance are essential parts of the history. Yet by the measures of global reach and connectivity, no earlier empire operated on quite the same worldwide scale. British power rested on a system. The Royal Navy protected sea lanes and overseas bases. Industrial production supplied ships, weapons, rails, and manufactured goods. London became a center of finance and insurance. Steamships reduced travel time, while undersea telegraph cables moved information across oceans at unprecedented speed. Britain could draw soldiers, labor, food, taxes, and raw materials from many regions, though the burdens and benefits were distributed deeply unequally. The phrase that the sun never set on the empire was geographically true at its height. Territories were spread across enough longitudes that daylight touched at least one of them. Britain ranked second because its power was global, industrial, financial, and maritime. But size is not the only criterion. The final empire was far smaller, yet created an unusually durable machine for war, government, infrastructure, and absorption. And at number 1, the Roman Empire, under this video's chosen criteria. Rome was not the largest on this list. At maximum territorial extent under Trajan in 117, estimates place it at roughly 5 to 6 million square kilometers. Population estimates commonly fall between about 50 and 70 million, perhaps 1/5 to 1/4 of all people alive. Although ancient demography is uncertain, the empire controlled the Mediterranean's major shipping routes and surrounded the sea with provinces, ports, cities, and military frontiers. Its legions were disciplined and standardized, but Rome's deeper advantage was replacement capacity. The state could tax wealthy provinces, recruit new soldiers, rebuild armies after disasters, and move men and supplies along roads and sea lanes. Military defeats that would destroy a smaller kingdom did not necessarily destroy Rome. Rome ranks first here because several kinds of power reinforced one another. Roads, bridges, ports, aqueducts, warehouses, and fortified frontiers supported both armies and commerce. Provincial taxation financed the state. Local elites could gain status inside the imperial order, and citizenship expanded until it covered most free inhabitants of the empire. Roman law and urban institutions outlived individual emperors. The Western Empire endured for centuries. The Eastern Roman Empire continued from Constantinople for nearly another 1,000 years after the Western collapse. None of this makes Roman rule peaceful or morally superior. Rome conquered violently, enslaved people, crushed revolts, and suffered civil wars. But judged by military resilience, integration, infrastructure, longevity, and influence relative to its age, Rome forms the strongest all-round system in this particular ranking. Change the criteria, and the winner can change. Britain built the largest empire by area. The Mongols conquered faster. Persia ruled an extraordinary share of humanity. Qing China carried immense population and economic weight, and Rome combined military power, infrastructure, law, and endurance. This ranking depends on the criteria, and a different weighting creates a different winner. But which empire do you think was the most powerful? Put your top 5 in the comments. If you enjoyed our video, please like and subscribe to Annie Stories for more.